We're going to just cover what food journaling is, the reasons to food journal, how to do so, and just discuss a few measurements of food so that you can orient yourself and can start journaling as of today, really. So, what is food journaling? So, food journaling is just keeping a record of all food that you put in your mouth. And I put food in quotations. If you remember from the last discussion we had, we discussed what is food. And food is not necessarily just something you put in your mouth. Food is what our body uses either for building or for fueling the body. And so there are a lot of chemicals or substances or different items that accompany our food. That's not actually food. And we discussed that last time. So food is what our body uses for building or for its internal processes and energy. Okay. Outside of that, it's not food, whether it's a liquid or a solid. And that's the definition we're using for food throughout our whole discussion today. Food journaling is keeping a record of all true food, whether it's a liquid or solid, that we put into our mouth. Why do we journal? Well, we journal for simple reasons. The more accurate and precise the journaling is, the better the data. The better the data, the better the information we can extract from the data. And the better the information, the more valuable the insights we get in terms of the relationship of the food we're eating and our current state of health. And the more valuable the insights, the more appropriate the recommendations that myself or anyone you're consulting is able to give you, because we've got good insight into what you're actually eating. So the more accurate and precise that is, the more valuable insights are going to be. So the quality of your individualized recommendation, whether it's a medical recommendation, fitness recommendation, is essentially a precision plan, is based upon the quality and accuracy of the journaling. So it just helps one be more aware of what you're taking, but more importantly, we're able to tailor make a plan for your health based upon the accuracy of the information you're giving us, right down to the grams, based on weight, based on level of activity, based on age, and so forth. But that comes from the quality of the food journaling that we have. Then we can see where to troubleshoot, at least from the nutritional side of one's healthcare plan. So how do we journal our food? It's just recording it, isn't it? We take into account the food that we've ingested, true food that we've ingested, quantity of the food that we've ingested, and at the time at which we've ingested our food. The time we take our food is actually a very important concept, because whether we're eating food in our fasted state, so we're breaking a fast, versus taking food when we've recently eaten, that's within 4 hours after eating, very, very different, and our circadian rhythm, when we talk about circadian rhythms, we're talking about the variation in the concentration or the action of the hormones in the body based upon time. So when we eat early in the morning, we've got a different set of hormones that are governing us, that are going to interact with the food, that are going to respond with the food that we've taken first thing in the morning versus a midnight snack. And so the timing of food becomes very important. And so those three elements do come out in food journaling. What exactly was eaten, how much of it was eaten, and what time was it taken. So it can be as simple as just, a handwritten form or a diary. If you need a PDF to print out for yourself because you want to write it down, that's okay. We can always organize and send on the broadcast or on the group. You can see the days of the week and the times the food was eaten or for which meal. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the snacks in between. And then one will just fill in how much of what they ate. Just a side note, find breakfast. Culturally, we think breakfast is what we take in the morning, but medically, breakfast is the first food that we eat of the day. It has very little to do with the time. So we break our fast with the first bit of food that we take. And whether that's at 4 in the morning or is at 6 p.m., that becomes breakfast. So it's the first piece of food that we put in our mouth. Although you can see from this form that it's written in a more colloquial fashion to say breakfast is what you eat in the morning, lunch at noontime, and dinner in the evening. So we did have a look at this last time, and this is the app that we'll go over. Just to recap, this is the information that we can get from a digital journal, where it will combine the combination of the ingredients of food that is being taken and give us a nutrition fact about the food that we've just taken in. So our total fats, our saturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, and monounsaturated fats. If you remember, the classification of fats is to do with the number of double bonds between the carbon atoms. When we look at carbohydrates, we're looking at dietary fiber as a carbohydrate. Our body doesn't normally digest it, can get very little out of it, but we just view it as an undigestible food. It helps us with the bulk of our stool. And then everything outside of dietary fiber is what our body ingests or our body digests and absorbs for energy and the various processes. Okay. So our total carbohydrates minus our dietary fiber, so in this case, it would be 209 minus 27.6, would give us the carbohydrates that our body is actually able to digest and what is contributing to our blood sugar if we're diabetic, or maybe contributing to the insulin spikes and its associated conditions, or contributing to our weight gain. And then our protein. If you remember, proteins are made up of amino acids, but our nutrition fact sheet is not going to break down the various amino acids. In some talk, I'll probably discuss that because not all proteins are the same, but in a deep dive later on, we'll discuss that. So this is the nutrition fact that we can get based upon the foods that have been logged in the digital app, and we'll do a demonstration of that. So various measurements of food. So food may be measured either as a mass, so you're weighing it out, or looking at the volume of the food, so in ounces or cups or teaspoons or tablespoons and so forth. And I think it's absolutely fine to make use of either or. The more precise that one is, the more valuable the information, because we'll know if we're actually meeting the recommended daily allowances as per guidelines, or for your specific condition, are we meeting the ideal amount of food we should be taking on a daily basis. So kitchen scales, not everyone likes weighing out their food all the time, and that's fine. There are various ways to estimate the amount of food that one is taking, and depending on the condition. If you take, for example, most type 2 diabetics, we might just use portion equivalents, or exchanges. So this is where we use either a part of the hand or the body to estimate the amount of food, as opposed to an actual, weighing kitchen scale. Although there's some conditions like epilepsy where the diet is so specific, we expect the patient to take X number of grams of fat, of protein, of carbohydrates per meal, and it's now almost a medical prescription. So just depending on what the health goals are, what the medical goals will dictate whether it's enough to use portion sizes versus specific weights of grams or ounces. So these are just measuring cups. They're sets that are available, I've seen in the shops or in the pharmacy. You can get those and you'll be able to measure your food based on volume. So portion exchanges. Portion exchanges are servings of food that contain similar amounts of carbohydrates, fat, protein, and calories within a food group. Very often a set level is 15 grams of carbs. Seems to be pretty standard. Most servings will be to 15 grams of carbs. If you look at a packet of Lay's, not that it's healthy food, but I'm using it as an example, a packet of Lay's, all of them will be measured out to have 15 grams of carbs, the small packet of Lay's. A slice of bread is roughly 15 grams of carbs, and that would be regarded as one serving or one exchange of carbohydrates. So one exchange of rice will contain 15 grams of carbs. One exchange of sadza will have 15 grams of carbs. And so the mass of the food is not necessarily going to be the same, but each exchange will have the same number of carbohydrates. Then a catalog of foods and their volumes that contain the same amount of carbs, such as 15 grams, as we've just been discussing. When we look at food portions, a matchbox of meat is about an ounce of meat, and an ounce is roughly 25, 28 grams. The amount of meat is not the same as the amount of protein. All of our food in our supermarkets are put in 100 grams per 100 grams. 100 grams of beef is not the same as 100 grams of protein. Beef is made up of fat, it's made up of water, it's made up of protein. And so 100 grams of beef, if it's a good quality beef, is roughly 25 grams of protein. One matchbox of meat, if we're saying is about 25 grams of beef, is only about maybe 7 grams of protein. So food portion sizes, 1 palm size of meat is about 3 ounces of meat. So when we talk about a palm size, that's the area. So if it covers roughly the area of your hand, excluding the fingers, that's going to be 3 ounces of meat. A fist of rice, sadza, pasta, fruit, vegetables, beans is going to be 3/4 to 1 cup of the same. And so 1 fist is equivalent to 6 to 8 ounces. Of course, it depends on the size of the fist, but for an adult, it's going to be roughly 6 to 8 ounces. Not as accurate as actually using a measuring cup or to weighing it out, but for some people, it's actually adequate. What I like about it is that everyone has got a fist, so whether you're eating out or you're eating at home or at a place of convenience, you're able to estimate what you're taking with reasonable accuracy. So like I mentioned, 1 cup is equivalent to 8 ounces. And when we say a cup is not a mug. A cup is a teacup. All right, so a teacup is about 250 mils. It's not the same as a mug or a tumbler. And so if that's what you're using at home as a cup, it's not the same thing. Your fist is closer to a teacup in terms of volume. And if you have a teacup, imagine that as the cup that is being discussed nutritionally. Other food portions to be aware of: 1 teaspoon is the same as 5 grams, 1 tablespoon is the same as 15 grams, and 1 tablespoon is the same as 3 teaspoons. Okay, so 1 teaspoon of honey is the same as 5 grams of honey, 1 tablespoon of honey is the same as 15 grams of honey, and 1 tablespoon of honey is the same as 3 teaspoons of honey. So really the key concept out of all that we've said is that the quality of your food journaling is going to directly affect the quality of the medical or health advice or recommendations that you will get. And so to improve that nutritional recommendation you'll get, improve how accurately one is actually journaling the food. And it's literally everything and anything that goes into the mouth. If you journal it, you'll get in the habit of it, and then you'll actually get meaningful information from it.